You both work with top-class racehorses every day. Katie, you've obviously worked with Gordon and you still work with him from time to time. You're based with Porrick Roach now. You were there when Caldwell Potter was being sold. What do you make of the news that the second highest-rated novice hurdler in training, according to Timeform, and the most expensive horse sold at public auction for jumps racing is not going to go to Cheltenham because he needs time to acclimatise and ditch it?
I just think it's a real shame that he's not showing up here in Cheltenham because he's shown all the right signs to be a top class graded novice horse for this year. I think it's a bit odd that they're saying that he hasn't got time to acclimatise. Like, he'd have 4 weeks. That's plenty of time. I know Harry Durham is keen and he's intending to run the two he bought, Molly's Mango and Imagine, and all systems go for them.
That's Paul Nicholls' former assistant trainer, Harry Durham.
Sometimes horses run their best race after changing yards. Some horses thrive off that change, new scenery, and it can really spark them up. We've seen plenty of horses who have benefited from a stable change over the years and have gone on to win first time out since doing so. So I don't think that's necessarily a problem with him. But look, if they want to wait till next year, then that's what they want to do, and unfortunately there's nothing we can do about it. But it's just a real shame.
He is, particularly when Harry Durham is going to take his 2 horses to Cheltenham. This idea that they need time to acclimatise. Like, this wasn't an issue for Henry de Bromhead and Willie Mullins. 2 weeks before the Cheltenham Festival, they get sent Envoy-Len, Quilixios and Sir Gerard, respectively. Those 3 horses go to Cheltenham. Envoy-Len obviously didn't work out quite well for, but it was no problem for Quilixios, who wins the Triumph Hurdle under a new jockey in Rachel Blackmore, who also rode Sir Gerard for Willie Mullins to win the Champion Bumper. Look, there's been a lot of talk about the dominance of Willie Mullins and Gordon Elliott, but particularly Willie Mullins. There was even a suggestion of introducing an NFL-style draft system to try and make it fairer for the smaller owners, banning the likes of Johnny Delahaye, the Donnellys. See, Katie's smirking at this already, and we haven't talked about this, but I think Katie already knows that's insane, because if you were to do that, you would destroy the bloodstock industry overnight. Wouldn't the big owners just buy those horses privately anyway? But now the horse that should have cost 500 grand going to the person who bred it or the hurt person who pinhooked it, raised that horse, broke it, brought it through, they only get 100 grand for a half a million pound horse. But then the new owner gets approached by Rich Ritchie, who's blocked from buying it at public auction, and says, I'll pay you 500 grand for that horse right now. They'd still end up with the good horses, but the people who breed them would lose out. He
isn't always going to be at the top. There's going to be someone else there. It's like Noel Mead was there at the top for a few years, 15 years ago. Like, do you know, it swings and roundabouts. And it's the same in football. I don't know much about football anyway, but I'm sure you guys know. Like, it changes every 5-10 years. Like, there's always going to be a team that's up and coming, and it switches around all the time. And people have to remember that Willie isn't going to dominate forever. He's just dominating at the moment, and there's always going to be someone else coming in under the radar in the future. And we actually do need to celebrate what Willie's doing, because it's incredible how he is training these horses. Like, he's just different class, but he isn't going to be around forever. And we actually do need to make the most of what he's doing at the moment.
Talking about the NFL draft style thing, Emmet. Like, anyone who's making that point, A, doesn't understand the NFL, and B, doesn't understand horse racing, because
there's no transfer fees involved.
Yeah, but like, forget about the bloodstock industry. The NFL draft is a study on why in sport coaching is king. Because on the face of it, a different team should win the Super Bowl every year. Because the way it works, briefly, a gross oversimplification of it, the teams that are doing the worst get the first choice of players. Teams doing the best get the last choice of players. There's a bit of, you can trade picks and things like that, but generally that's how it works. And yet, you have teams like the New England Patriots winning five Super Bowls with Tom Brady, I believe. And then as of last night, Kansas City Chiefs winning 3 out of the last 5 Super Bowls. Why do you think that happens? The players are constantly changing. There's a new draft every year. The players are changing. It's coaching. And who are the coaches of horse racing? The trainers. The best trainers, the best coaches are always going to get the best out of the system. In those two cases, Tom Brady's probably the best quarterback of all time. Patrick Mahomes not far behind him for the Kansas City Chiefs. But if you put them in a system that doesn't work, they can't win Super Bowls. It's exactly the same with horse racing. And if you just randomly distributed all these horses to whichever trainer you want, Willie Mullins is still going to rise to the top because he is the best trainer of a racehorse in the world. And it's as simple as that. You can give him absolute crap and he will still win races with them. and he will eventually rise to the top because he's the best. It's as simple as that.
Well, that's an excellent point and very well made. Instead of speculating about ripping up the program book and coming up with a whole new graded program or destroying the bloodstock industry as it currently is, why don't we just look at the facts? So, Cheltenham 2003, how many runners did Willie Mullins, Paul Nicholls, Nicky Henderson, how many runners did they have? Willie Mullins had 13, Nicky Henderson had 21, Paul Nicholls had 18. Fast forward to 2013, Willie Mullins had 35, Nicky Henderson had 39, Paul Nicholls had 30. Gordon Elliott wasn't a trainer in 2003, he was a jockey for Martin Pipe, who had 59 runners at that Cheltenham Festival. 2023, Nicky Henderson had 21 runners. Willie Mullins had 76. How many did Paul Nicholls have? And by the way, before you answer that, Paul Nicholls was the one who was winning all the Open Championship races. Champion Hurdle, Queen Mother Champion Chase, multiple Stairs Hurdles, multiple Gold Cups. It took Willie Mullins until Hurricane Fly's Champion Hurdle for him to win an Open Company Grade 1 at the Cheltenham Festival. There was even a narrative that he couldn't do it, that he was good with novices, but he couldn't train them in Open Company. Now he dominates. In 2013, these guys were pretty much neck and neck. In 2023, Willie Mullins has 76 runners. How many did Paul Nicholls have? George?
25.
Katie?
Might be on the high side.
I'm going to go 15.
15's a ballsy number to go for. And Katie's closest. 16.
Jeez.
Like, having 16 runners at Cheltenham, that's still a huge achievement. But let's be completely honest about this. Paul Nicholls is a fantastic trainer. Nicky Henderson is a fantastic trainer. I am not having a pop at these guys by any stretch of the imagination. But let's also be honest. Paul Nicholls was way ahead of Willie Mullins in 2003. He was still kind of ahead of him, and Nicky Henderson definitely was in 2013. But Willie Mullins has become bigger, stronger, and better. Gordon Elliott, a jockey in 2003. He had 11 runners at the 2013 Cheltenham Festival. Last year, he had 57. Nobody handed that to Gordon Elliott. He built it from scratch. Willie Mullins, Ruby Walsh was talking about this on ITV Racing on Saturday. He worked for him in 1996. He had nothing. It was a small yard. He has built this up into the empire it is. Nobody's to blame for these two guys being successful except that they have built their empires up. But why are we talking about destroying the program book, imposing restrictions on the number of runners that you can have in handicaps, imposing caps on the number of horses that can be trained? It's anti-competitive. It's anti-sportsmanlike. None of it makes any sense to me.
Just to play devil's advocate on that, there is domination and there's domination. Like, Willie Mullins is averaging more winners at Cheltenham every year than Nicky Henderson has ever trained in 1 year at Cheltenham, or Paul Nicholls. Like, his average number is higher than their best total. Like, it is staggering. Like, I just playing devil's advocate, I totally agree. Like, I think it's a meritocracy, and whoever rises to the top should really stay there. Like, I just think it's not their fault they're the best, but people would make the point that no one has ever dominated Cheltenham like Willie Mullins is now. While it might go in cycles of who's dominating, Willie Mullins is ultra dominant.
Gordon was the first trainer to get to 8 winners, wasn't he?
Yeah,
at Cheltenham,
I think so,
the 1 year.
yeah.
So,
when
you can
he
argue that Gordon was actually rising the most amount of Cheltenham winners before Willie was.
He was leading trainer 2 years in a row. I've mentioned this before. This got quoted by Eddie O'Leary when the whole restrictions of 4 runners nonsense in Class 1 and Class 2 handicaps came about. And the reason he was quoting it is because it's hypocrisy. Martin Pipe had 57 runners at the 2003 Cheltenham Festival. He had 9 runners in the Coral Cup, 8 in the Pretemps, 6 in the County Hurdle, 4 in the Triumph Hurdle, 4 in the Mile May of Fleet, 4 in the Kim Muir. There was no talk of, something must be done about this Martin Pipe.
But Nicky Henderson had 4 horses declared in the Betfair at the weekend, and no one said anything about that. I know they didn't. 2 of them didn't run. No one said a word about him having 4 in the Betfair, did they?
And he wins the race.
Okay, tempted to take the ball and go home, isn't it? It's basically what it is.
We have to stop this Irish dominance. Maybe put your hand in your pocket and create incentives for horses to be trained in Britain. Why don't you offer a series of bonus structures where if you've got a racehorse that wins a certain type of novice hurdle who goes on to win at Cheltenham, it's a 20 grand or a 50 grand bonus. But if you go on to win at Aintree or at Sandown at the end of the season or at the Scottish Grand National meeting, it's a 100 grand bonus. That way you're boosting up those other festivals instead of Cheltenham, and you're incentivizing British owners to have horses and Irish owners to have horses in training in the UK. But that's going to cost the BHA money.
Well, they do.
And they don't want to spend that money.
That's just it, because they do that over here with the race at the Dublin Racing Festival, the 2.5. If that horse wins that and goes on to win a race, any race at the Cheltenham Festival, they'll take a 50 grand bonus back to stable staff. We came very close to it the first year it was ever done. Commander Fleet actually let us down, and he finished second in the Albert Bartlett, but I don't think it's actually been done before since that scheme started. But it is a good incentive, and as well it's a good incentive for stable staff as well.
Willie Mullins was the one who got the money. He won it for his stable staff. Yeah. That's a good point to be made though, Katie. That incentive, it's not for the owners, it's for the stable staff, which is terrific. But you could do that for British Racing has enough money to do this thing. They're always talking about how tough things are, and they need to be saving for a rainy day. It's pissing down in Britain. And instead of blaming Willie Mullins, Henry de Bromhead, Gordon Elliott and Gavin Cromwell for your problems, focus on your own situation.